Hi folks, welcome back to City of Swans pixel art course, taught by me, Rin. In the last video, we looked at how to use Piscal, and I asked you to make a self-portrait using no more than 8 colours. Today, I'll explain why I asked you to do that, and it starts the beginning of the history of pixel art. Pixel art first started when video games needed pictures to show what was happening. Before there was art to illustrate what was happening, the main way games were played was text-based adventure games. If you'd like to play some to see what they're like, I'll link a website with a few games. The first game to use pixel art was Pong in 1972. You can see it's a pretty simple idea these days, but it was revolutionary at the time. The next step up from Pong was 8-bit games like Super Mario Bros, Donkey Kong, and Frogger. I'll link to a website where you can play these games today. They're called 8-bit because of the way computers work. Each pixel you see on the screen is shown by the computer as an 8-bit byte. That means that early consoles had a lot of limits on them regarding colour, like the NES. This was the total range of colour that you could potentially use, but you could only use 4 per character or background piece. In the last assignment, I gave you 8, which is double what the older game developers had to use. If you're interested in more of this history, this video is really interesting. These days, the main use of pixel art is for smaller, low-budget games. Pixel art is much quicker to make than 3D models, and is also much easier for coders to write for. There's plenty of beautiful games that use pixel art. It can be as simple or as complex as you want to make it. These are some games from a local developer, Ellie. She's a good friend of mine, and a great developer. You can see here she makes puzzle click adventure type games, and we even made a game together a few years ago. If you want to find some local games made by local people, you can see them here on Let's Make Games. Creating nice looking art is part style, part science. There are a few rules of art that are good to know before you embark on a big piece, and one of them is called colour theory. Colour theory is a set of rules or guidelines to help you figure out which colours to use when you're making art. In digital art, there's 2 different ways computers store and display colour. RGB, which stands for red, green, blue, and CMYK, which stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and key. Key stands in for black. When you add the colours of RGB together, they create a white colour. And if you add CMYK together, they'll make black. You might have seen CMYK if you've ever had to refill a printer. These are the colours that non-digital art will use. Most digital art, especially for things that will never be printed, will use RGB. RGB has the benefit of showing more vibrant colours digitally and making the file size smaller to store. Let's start with the colour wheel and how this relates to colour theory. The main idea of colour theory is that certain colours go better together in certain ways. These are known as primary colours, secondary colours, and tertiary colours. The primary colours are red, yellow, and blue. These colours are bright and eye-grabbing, and are often used when you want something to catch the eye, like a red flag in a painting, or a glint of gold in a dark room. The secondary colours are orange, green, and purple, and are each a mix of the 2 closest primary colours. The tertiary colours are the remaining 6 colours that are a mix between primary and secondary colours. It's important to know how the colours relate to and influence each other. If I had a painting with mostly blues, like an ocean, seeing a little red ship on the waves would immediately draw my eye to the ship more than if it was a little green ship. Developing a good colour scheme has a little more to do with it than which colours are primary and tertiary though. A good scheme will use one or more of these styles to influence the colours you use. The first style is complementary. It's when the colours are opposite from each other. This style is good for little pops of colour, but if you use both colours equally, the drawing can look a little overdone colour-wise. For example, let's look at Yoshi. Yoshi's character has 3 main colours, green, orange, and white. I'd say the main colour is green, supported by the white and orange colours. Excluding the white, you can see the 2 colours Nintendo chose for this character are roughly complementary. They sit here and here. The second style is called analogous, and it's like this when the colours are close to each other. This style is good for when you're making environmental pieces or characters with a very strong idea of self, like for example, a shark man would use lots of blues and blue-greens along with whites and blacks. The third style is called triadic because it's in the shape of a triangle. This style is good at creating balanced pieces with a nice amount of variance and can be used quite strongly when you know how to wield the colours you're using. There's another way to look at colour, using warm and cool colours. If you've ever heard someone say, red is the colour of anger and passion, or blue is a calming colour, it comes from these ideas. This side of the colour wheel are what's known as warm colours, and generally portray the feelings of energy, passion, action and doing. These are the cooler colours, and generally represent calm, peace and nature. All these ideas are worth looking into to make a great piece. The first thing to do when starting a big piece is research. There's this funny myth that refuses to go away, that using reference images is cheating, and I'm here to say that all the professionals use lots of references. It's unusual not to use references. Figure out all the bits you'd like to include in your piece, and then the next step is arranging them. I'm going to talk about two concepts, leading lines and the golden spiral. Leading lines are how you control the viewer's eyes. Sounds super powerful, right? To use leading lines, you need to be careful where you place your objects, so they more or less point to what you want the viewer to focus on. Let's look at some pictures I took a few years back. You can see here, in this picture, the railing in the path leads the eyes down towards the beach, so the beach is the main focus. In this one, the light off the receding wave leads the eye further down the beach, so the focus is drawn in further. You don't need to be too heavy-handed with leading lines, but knowing where to make someone look is a great skill to have, especially when making games. The second concept I want to talk about today is the golden spiral. It's also known as Fibonacci spiral or the golden ratio, and in maths it looks like this. You might have seen it before in nature too. Lots of plants will grow flowers and leaves that use this spiral pattern. We use it as artists to compose artworks that lead the eye around and tell it where to focus. One of the old greats, Leonardo da Vinci, used it all the time, like you can see here with the Mona Lisa. All the intricate details where the spiral gets tighter. Using all the concepts I talked about in this video is a skill, and skills are developed over time, so don't feel frustrated if you don't get it right away. If you keep practicing over time, you'll only get better at it. So for your assignment this video, I'd like you to take all the knowledge of colour theory you now possess and make a nice big background piece. You can use as many colours as you'd like, and the background can be anywhere you like. Your bedroom, a beach, a fantasy world or a city. The only limit is your imagination. Think about where you'd like to have a holiday, or somewhere you love a lot. The art should be 320 by 180 pixels wide. Don't forget to show off your finished piece to me on the Discord, and if you have any questions you can ask me there too. I look forward to seeing all your amazing background pieces, and I will see you in the next video.